Today we'll talk about my favorite art books. Of course, there are more than these two books, and I tried to build some categories and find a common theme I could describe these books by. The first category I want to talk about is plain and simple art. And by that I mean art as a subject that is studied and art in its historical context. The very first book about art is actually from a publisher that does mostly textbooks as well as books for university students. And now this is the only book that is not available in another language. That is mostly why I wanted to get it out of the way, start with it. But I highly recommend getting a book about art from a scholar perspective. That way you have a reference you can come back to whenever you want to know how does printmaking actually work, what is the purpose of a self-portrait, also what are the rules of perspective or the golden cut. Now let's move on to another one I have about art. This time the history of art. This one is available in English. It is called The History of Art, an Illustrated Historical Overview, or I believe in the US it's called Painting a Concise History. This is from Volker Gebhardt. He goes chronologically through the different periods of art. Again, it is very compact. It is also well explained. You could really understand why there was another art period coming, why the older one was left behind, what kind of political and historical environments shaped these different art periods. And even though I don't think I will come back and read it again, it was a very nice read. It helps me every day whenever I come into contact with art. At this point, I also want to mention the Internet Archive. They archive books, they archive audio recordings, video clips, and many books I will show you. I'll tell you each time it is available on the Internet Archive are there for free. It is like an online library and you only need a free account in order to access all of this information. Such a great resource, and this crash course and art history is available on the Internet Archive. I will leave links to all of this down below in the description. If you want to purchase those books, unless you really can't get it any other way, please consider buying from your local bookstores. My bookstore, for example, has an online catalog. There is almost every book on the market available. I will order it online and they will have it in their bookstore within 2 to 5 business days. Let's talk about the next category, which is books for artists about art techniques. The first one is available on the Internet Archive and it is from Louise Gordon. It is called Drawing the Human Head and it's a double book. There is also in there anatomy and figure drawing. It's from 1977, which is the nice thing about having old books. Older books are more likely to be available on the Internet Archive. In there we have very detailed anatomical descriptions and drawings. I'd say 2/3 of it is anatomical information, and then 1/3 of it is actually how to apply this knowledge into your paintings and drawings. Every now and then there are examples of famous artists. There are several from Da Vinci and Michelangelo and other artists who were known for their pencil drawings. That is anatomy and figure drawing, and then in the back there is drawing the human head. Here we talk more about the muscles of the face and how they impact portrait drawing. For me it was the perfect book because I struggle a lot with anatomy and at the same time I want to up my portrait game. Therefore, perfect book, 2 in 1. Now this one is also available on the Internet Archive. It is called in English The Drawing and Painting Course by Angela Gare. You get this book used for $5 or less. Let's look inside. Maybe you know from my series here on YouTube, Find Your Art Medium, that I like to try out many different art mediums all the time and challenge myself. This is what I enjoy about this book the most. Angela Gare shows us little projects and example paintings with all of these different mediums. You can paint along and she gives you helpful tips. It is almost like a master study, but with all these step-by-step descriptions. Immensely helpful, and I want to mention her newest book came out in 2019, so she is still active. It is called How to Paint, a complete guide to watercolor, acrylics and oil, and I believe it is about the same structure as this one. If you want to get her newer book and support her, that would be your go-to book. This book is also in the Internet Archive. Isn't that just such a great resource? This is called An Introduction to Painting Portraits by Rosalind Cuthbert. Don't be surprised, many of these books have different covers in their English version. Now, this is from 2001, and if you are able to get this used, if you see it, it should be really cheap because it is 20 years old. Let's look inside and see what we can learn about portrait painting. What I enjoy almost even more than all of these amazing tips and step-by-step guides she has in there is that there are so many portraits from other painters in there. I learned about other artists I hadn't heard about before I even started to practice any portraits from this book. After some general information about portraits, proportions, lighting your scene, and going over all of the different aspects of a face, the nose, the eyes, as well as hands, because they are often in portraits as well, she then goes to show us some step-by-step examples. There are examples of pastel, watercolors, oil, and acrylics. There's also the color palette she used for each portrait, and all in all, it is a great overview about portrait painting and depicting the human face. These three were the books I have about art techniques. Now I want to show you 3 books. Each of the books covers one artist in particular. We will begin with German Impressionist Lovis Corinth. I think I lied before, this book is only available in German as well. Not that there aren't many books about Lovis Corinth, but this book especially, it's from 1985. Don't even try, I don't think you're gonna get it. I will leave you a link to another one down below. Lovis Corinth has interesting color palettes, especially in his portraits, and I quite enjoy his loose brush strokes. There isn't too much detail, and still his pieces convey so much emotion and information. Now, Joaquin Sorolla immediately became my favorite artist as soon as I laid eyes on a painting of his. I got this book, which in English is called Sorolla, the Masterworks. It is from 2012. He lived by the sea, therefore many of his paintings picture the sea and his family who is bathing in the waves. He painted his family quite often and was well known in Spain during his active time. He portrayed the King of Spain several times and was commissioned to capture Spain in a series of paintings, which he then spent several years creating. If I do a video about studying a master, it will definitely be one of his pieces in oil pastel. And next up, I'm so sorry, I did lie. There are several that are only available in German. This is one of them. It is a book about Klimt, but he is such a well-known Austrian Impressionist and Art Nouveau painter that you should have no trouble finding a book about him at all. He is very well known, especially for his pieces with gold details. But he has a lot of other impressive work. I'll just show you some of it. But when you think about a 2D painting with gold details, you immediately think of Klimt. I don't particularly enjoy the written text about his biography, I have to say. I dislike the way his life events are described. It is not as impartial as I would like, and therefore I'd say get another book about Klimt, not this one. The artist that is missing here from this collection that I would really like a book about is John Singer Sargent, but because he was a US painter, and is very famous in the US still. It is quite hard to come upon a book about him in Central Europe that costs less than 50 or 60 euros. That is why I don't own one yet, but at some point I will. And good news, in the Internet Archive there are also books about John Singer Sargent, and I will link those below. Now these were the 3 books I have about special artists. Now I want to show you 3 books that are really hard to fit into a category, but still I enjoy looking through them quite a bit, and all of them are available in English. Let's take a look. The first one is The Complete Color Harmony by Leatrice Eisenman. She is the executive director of the Pantone Color Institute. You might know Pantone from these little cards that people sometimes draw on. Also, each year they announce a color of the year, and by doing so highly influence the fashion industry as well as the interior design industry. After some la-di-da about color and telling us what each color is meant to represent and evoke, we go over to these color wheels. We can see a mood, and then for each of these, all in all 30 moods, there are 36 color combinations. It is an amazing source of inspiration. Just browsing through, let your mind conjure some pieces just by looking at these color combinations. That can be a powerful tool and can be very helpful if you feel stuck or in a slump. Next up, we have a book that is almost impossible to come by, but there is a similar one in the Internet Archive, which I will link down below again. This is about paper art, a paradise of origamic architecture by Masahiro Chetani and Keiko Nakazawa. This was a present a Japanese exchange student gave my mom when she visited our family. In there are these incredible paper structures with a Japanese as well as an English description down below. The descriptions are really short. You have to use your imagination at some places, but still these designs are just too beautiful not to try despite the language barrier. There are many animals, flowers in varying difficulty, and if you are interested in paper art, I will link the Find Your Art Medium paper art over here. On the Internet Archive is Origami Architecture by one of these 2 authors. I can't recall which one, but one of these has another book which you can find on there. This book is on the Internet Archive as well. It is from Michael Gibson and it's called Symbolism. Don't fret, over the time it was published it had 3 different covers. Could be there is a monster with only one eye or a horse on there as well. In there we find a beautiful collection of pieces with heavy symbolism. It talks about symbolism in France, Great Britain, the US, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and there are also some biographies about artists who were especially known for their heavy symbolism. It feels almost like a movie. You can start, enjoy the pictures and the information, and get sucked into this fantastical realm of symbolism. I highly recommend this one. You can take a look at it in the Internet Archive. This last category of free inspiring books. Something I'm quite interested in is conveying information through art, and that is colliding in the discipline of infographics. And last year for Christmas, my father gifted me this book on visual journalism. She's a biggie. Not the biggest book I own, but still very big. Now in there it highlights different so-called masters of infographics. There is a short article about each of these masters, as well as some of their most interesting works. There are even some fold-out pages. Sometimes there are sketches of the prototype. Most of these articles are in English, but there are also many South American illustrators in there, and their infographics are of course in Spanish or Portuguese. If this is something that interests you, I can highly recommend this book. visual journalism. The second book I can recommend is this National Geographic's photo book. Photo books in general, if nature or animals or landscapes are your thing, there's a photo book for everything. And some of these are available used online for a fraction of what they cost originally. If you have the disposable income, it's always great to support these artists, photographers by purchasing their works. Otherwise, you can go look on reused book platforms. This was a gift from my best friend about, I think, 6 years ago. I have all these post-its where I tried to select favorite photos, but it's impossible. There are nearly 20 post-its, or maybe even more. Most of them are beautiful double-page spreads. There are photos from over the whole world, taken at very different times of the day, different seasons. You really get a large variety of reference pictures in there. So pick a topic you enjoy and get a large photo book on it. You might now be able to tell that my interests are paper art, infographics, and beautiful illustrations. The most beautiful illustrations, I believe, can be found in children's books. So imagine my delight when my sister gifted me How to Find a Fairy Tale. Not only are there beautiful illustrations inside, there is also paper art in there. And it is conveying information. This book was just made for me, and I truly hope you will find books like this as well, where all your interests overlap and you have something you can enjoy by looking at it over and over again. Draw some inspiration from it. Even though I shouldn't, and my to-be-purchased book list is embarrassingly long already, I'd love to hear if you have favorite books you tend to look at. Maybe you don't have them, but you really would like a certain book and think I might be interested in it, or you just want to share your book obsession. That is perfectly fine. I'd love to read about it. Let me know in the comments below. I hope to see you in the next video and hope you have a good time. Until then, bye!